All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something huge, the history of artificial intelligence. I mean, this story is epic. It goes all the way back to ancient myths and brings us right up to the thinking machines we see all around us today.
Seriously, have you ever just stopped and wondered, could a machine actually think? It's a pretty wild question, right? But that one question, that single idea, has fascinated people for centuries. It's literally the spark that lit the fire for the entire field of AI.
So, let's start at the beginning. An ancient human dream, the quest for automated beings. You see, long before we even had computers, the idea of thinking machines was already percolating in myths and early mechanical gadgets. Yeah, ancient civilizations were dreaming about building machines that could just work on their own. Now look, this wasn't AI like we think of it. Not even close. We're talking myths, maybe some clever clockwork. But the dream was there. That foundational desire to create something artificial that could act on its own, that was the very first step on this incredible journey.
Okay, so to guide us, think of this as our map. This timeline is going to walk us through how this whole idea evolved. We'll hit the major milestones you see here. You know, from those early daydreams all the way to the deep learning that's changing our world right now.
All right, next stop, the birth of an idea. The modern era begins. We're jumping forward to the 1950s, which was a huge decade. This is where that abstract dream starts to become something real, something scientific. This is where the modern story of AI really kicks off.
And it really all boils down to this one simple but totally profound question from the man himself, Alan Turing. Can machines think? I mean, this guy was a genius, a British mathematician who's pretty much considered the father of modern AI.
So, to tackle that huge question, Turing did something brilliant. He didn't say, let's build a brain. Instead, he proposed a clever little experiment, a kind of imitation game that we now call the Turing test. So here's how it works. You're basically sending text messages, right? But you have no idea if you're chatting with a person or a computer. And if you can't tell the difference, well, the computer passes. The key here is that it's not about whether the machine feels anything. It's about whether it can talk like a human. If it can fool you, Turing argued, then it's demonstrating intelligence. And get this, just a few years later, in 1956, a bunch of the top minds in this new area got together for a summer conference at Dartmouth. And that's it. That's the moment the field got its official, very ambitious name, artificial intelligence.
Okay, so now we're entering a new phase, a winter of disappointment. The early years were full of hype and excitement, but, well, the road ahead was way bumpier than anyone expected.
At first, things looked amazing. The first AI programs were solving things like logic puzzles and tough math problems. There was this one program, the Logic Theorist, that was just blowing people's minds. The optimism was huge. It really felt like they were on the verge of cracking the code. But here's the thing. The hopes were sky high, but the reality was, well, harsh. The dream was these machines that could solve any problem you throw at them. The reality? Computers back then were so slow, with barely any memory. I mean, they'd take hours to solve a problem a kid could do in a few minutes. The ambition just completely outran the technology. And that huge gap between what was promised and what was actually delivered, it led to major disappointment. The excitement just fizzled out. Progress pretty much ground to a halt, and the whole field entered this period that everyone now calls the AI winter. So why did this AI winter happen? Well, it was a perfect storm, really. You had scientists promising the moon and not being able to deliver. The computers were still way too slow and clunky. Developing this stuff was crazy expensive. And for all that effort, the programs only worked on super narrow specific problems. So yeah, the funding and the interest, it just dried up. But you know what? Failure can be the best teacher. This whole period was actually super important. It forced everyone to realize that AI was a lot harder than they first thought. They learned they needed a totally new approach. It was a tough lesson, but a necessary one. And that brings us to our next chapter, the dawn of learning machines. This is the AI renaissance. Because that winter, it wasn't going to last forever. A thaw was coming, and it was sparked by a couple of huge technological shifts that absolutely changed the game. The real game changers came in the 90s. We're talking about the internet and the absolute explosion of data. All of a sudden, scientists had this new resource they'd never had before, just a massive, unbelievable amount of data to play with. It was like going from a puddle to an ocean.
And having all that data led to a whole new approach. It's called machine learning. See, instead of trying to write out every single rule for a computer to follow, they figured out how to teach machines to learn from the data all by themselves. It was a total flip in strategy.
Think about it like this. Before, to get a computer to know what a cat is, you'd have to program in rules like has pointy ears, has whiskers, has a tail. But with machine learning, you just show the computer thousands and thousands of pictures of cats, and you let it figure out the patterns on its own. It's a completely different way of doing things. And we got a huge, landmark moment that showed just how powerful this new idea was. For the first time ever, a computer defeated a world chess champion. I'm talking about IBM's Deep Blue beating Garry Kasparov. It was a massive deal. It was the world signal that AI was back, and it was more powerful than ever.
So this big comeback set the stage for our final chapter. Deep learning changes everything. This is the modern revolution. This is what led to the AI we're all talking about today, and it's powered by an even more advanced idea.
So, what is deep learning? Well, it's a super advanced kind of machine learning, and it's actually inspired by the human brain. It uses something called artificial neural networks, which are basically designed to mimic how our own brain's neurons are all connected. So you have these layers of digital neurons that work together, allowing the AI to understand things in a much deeper, more complex way.
And this new power led to some truly superhuman achievements. A computer didn't just beat a human at a game. It beat the world champion of Go, a game that's way, way more complex than chess. We're talking about a game with more possible moves than there are atoms in the known universe. That's just mind-blowing.
So that ancient dream is now our reality. It's amazing when you think about it, right? We've gone from these old myths all the way to a technology that is completely changing our world. The whole story of AI is this incredible reminder that what seems like science fiction today, well, it can easily become tomorrow's reality. And it just makes you wonder, doesn't it? What's the next big dream we're going to chase?